Hello and welcome to another Portworx demo. My name is Bhavin Shah, and in this presentation or in this demonstration, we are going to talk about how you can leverage Portworx Data Services or PDS to deploy a simple Cassandra cluster, a highly available Cassandra cluster, on an Amazon EKS cluster. So we have already logged into the PDS portal, which you can navigate by accessing prod.pds.portworx.com. And you will see on the dashboard itself, you'll see a list of all the different databases that you have already deployed. And you will see the catalog of data services or databases that you have available for you to deploy on your Kubernetes clusters. So let's select Cassandra, because that's what the demo is about. For this demo, we are going to use a simple pet clinic application. So we'll name our Cassandra instance pet clinic-cas. We'll select our EKS cluster as the target cluster. And once I do that, all the available namespaces on that EKS cluster shows up in this drop-down menu. Let's select Cassandra-demo. We'll keep the application configuration and resource settings as default. We'll come back in a separate demonstration and talk about how an administrator can create new profiles and what these profiles actually map to during our database deployment. We'll update the number of nodes that I want for my Cassandra instance to 3. Again, this can be any number that you want. And we'll leave the storage options as default as well. So by default, with the t-shirt size that I've selected, 100 gigs of persistent volume will be deployed. And on the storage level, XFS will be the file system, and my replication factor will be set to 2. So each persistent volume will have 2 replicas spread across all my EKS worker nodes. Optionally, I can go ahead and select backup jobs, so an hourly, daily, or a weekly backup. Once I select the backup job, I can also select the backup target. But since this is just a demo app, I'll keep it to no scheduled backups and hit deploy. Once the deployment begins, PDS talks to the PDS agent that's running on your EKS cluster and initiates the deployment of our Cassandra instance. So we start by deploying a stateful set for Cassandra. Configuring, for the first step is actually configuring the storage classes for our persistent volumes. Then we start by creating a stateful set for Cassandra. We will deploy the number of the replica count for that stateful set will be defined by the number of replicas that we specified in the UI. All the service endpoints that needs to be accessed externally will be configured as load balancers, because that's a simple checkbox we selected during our wizard, during the deployment wizard that we just filled out. So once all of our Cassandra nodes are up and running, basically once all the pods are in running state, you will see that all of these 3 boxes become green, and which means that our database has been successfully deployed. Okay, now as you can see, our Cassandra instance has been successfully deployed. All 3 nodes are in the running state. At this point, I can just click on view connection details and copy the endpoint for one of the Cassandra nodes and add it to my YAML file and deploy that sample application. So let's do that. We have a simple application called Pet Clinic. And in that, we have a couple of deployment objects, a couple of service objects. But the Pet Clinic backend deployment object needs those environment variables for our Cassandra instance. So let's update the environment variables here. So we copied our Cassandra endpoint. Our username is PDS, and then our password, which I can copy from the UI right here. You can copy it and paste it here. And that's it. That's all I need to do. It's as easy. Just deploy a database using the UI, update my connection strings for my application, and then deploy the app on my Kubernetes cluster. So let's apply the YAML file that we updated and select the Cassandra-demo namespace. So this deploys a couple of deployment objects for the backend and front end of the app, and then a couple of service objects. The service object for the backend deployment, which is just a node port service. And then for the front end, since we're running in EKS, I selected load balancer as the type for my service. So we'll get an endpoint that we can navigate to and see the application in action. Let's put a watch command on all resources in the Cassandra-demo namespace. And you can see we have not just our Cassandra pods, which were deployed through PDS. We also have our front end and back end pods. We have our endpoints for our application, and the pet clinic front end as well. So this is the endpoint that I can use to access my application. So let's just copy that. If I remove the watch command and just do a kubectl get all in the Cassandra-demo namespace, we can also see the stateful set that was deployed for our Cassandra database instance using PDS. So now let's go back to our browser instance, navigate to the endpoint that we have, and then select port 8080. So it takes a couple of minutes for the ELB load balancer, so Elastic Load Balancer in AWS, to come online and make those right connections. So we'll just wait here and skip the demo to the part where we have our application up and running. Okay, now if we refresh our page, you'll see that our pet clinic application has been successfully deployed, and I can start adding owner information, veterinarian information. I can start adding different pet types to this app, which will be stored in our backend Cassandra database. So this is how easy it is for developers to get any database they want, from Cassandra to PostgreSQL, up and running on their Kubernetes clusters of choice, and start using those databases in their applications by just using those credentials and the connection string that PDS gives you. That's it for this demo. Thank you for watching.